Hello, this is National Chess Master Rats. I'm doing a simul here at chess.com on Sunday, June 8th, 2014. And I think I have about 6 or 7 games going. One actually ended before I started the video. And the culprit here is the proverbial I move too fast. Okay, this game went 20 moves, so he spent 20 minutes on 20 moves. Looking down, it ended in at move 20. And 10 minutes have come off his clock. He got 9.5 minutes back for his 19 moves. I'm playing the opening, the same old opening I'm using, so you guys can prepare against it. It gives me practice playing it, and helps teach it to you folks. If you watch all my games, I'm doing this opening so you can learn opening. And it's easy, just like that. The first 11 moves every time. If you're lucky, you get the first 10 or 11 moves without changing. There's one game where I deviated. We'll get to that eventually as I play catch-up here. But let's just run through this game and close it out. He pushed d4, and this might be a tactical oops. And I've discovered I can take on d4, and all of a sudden there's going to be some tricks on the long diagonal. First, he can't take with the pawn because his knight on c6 will hang. He can't take with the queen because his queen would hang, obviously, so that leaves the bishop and the pawn. Maybe the better one was the bishop, but then I regain, well, if I want to regain the bishop here, I can just play knight c4 and just keep developing, but bishop takes might have been the best. I could always take it back, but he chose to take with the knight, and here comes the tactical oops. Now he needs to take with the bishop, and I'll probably, let's see, what will I do? I'll play might play knight b3 and then plant a rook on the d file and try to force d4 in. But he's got an even game, but he took with the queen and committed a tactical oops, and suddenly I have an attack on the rook and an attack on the bishop. So he played bishop a6 looking for counterplay, and I decided to take 2 pieces for the rook. Now he should play bishop takes d3 here, in which case I will probably play queen c3. And if queen takes, I take with the pawn. It grabs my rook. I'll throw a Zwischenzug f g7, make him take it. I'll pick up the bishop, and I'll have 2 minor pieces for the rook. And that should be a win for white in the long run. But he, again, didn't really take his time at all through this stretch. And anyway, he ends up down a piece, and I just save the knight. And I make an exchange and swing my rook over, get away from any discoveries on my rook, and game over. Sorry it didn't go so long for you. It's certainly something to look at. I've given you some ideas. Anyway, got a little chat going on here. You are very kind. Thanks. Okay, let's see. Get that sent, and let me close this one down. Which game was it? I don't want to close an active game down. Oh, here it is. Okay, and I make sure I close the right one. Now, how many games do I have left? Probably my move in all of them. Okay, so here the first 9 moves have been played. Now here comes move number 10. Okay, now what's happening here? This one reached. I didn't look at the other game. I'll try to go back and cover it. This one reached a kind of unique situation. I've run into a couple times where black advances this pawn a little early. Now it's not uncommon for black to advance that pawn later, but what this does is it gives me 2 squares to play on, c4 and e4, and so I could break with c4 and invite an en passant capture. I could do any of those things. c4 is probably a perfectly logical move here. But I just kind of stuck with my system and played g5. But I'm kind of looking like I like c4 better. It keeps the diagonal of my light squared bishop open. Often, white's playing for e4 here, and this bishop gets shut in and doesn't do white much. It just kind of sits there and holds everything together. Later it can come into play by bishop f1 and maybe even bishop c4. But no, someone's sending me a chat request. Let's see, do I want to start another game? Okay. I'm already playing this guy, but I'll accept his chat. I don't know what he wants. Then he's back to this. So c4 is a perfectly good alternative, and if he doesn't take en passant, I'll just expand on the queen side with my pawns. But I played bishop g4 or g5, and I'm getting ready to trade that critter. And here I play a4 to anchor a knight in on c4, and I just went ahead and parted with the bishop and followed the system, and there it is. And now I'm trying to remaneuver my knights to control those critical squares. And usually I don't like to trade pieces, but what's the alternative? Put the knight on a3? I could. But anyway, I chose to just go ahead and take it. Now he doesn't have any knights, but he's got two bishops. And those bishops really aren't a problem until the board gets opened up. But this pawn on d4, one thing I like about having that pawn on d4 is it shuts this dark squared bishop in. Meanwhile, I've got good control on the light squares. And I just developed my queen. I'm inviting bishop g5. I'll kick it with f4. Although that makes a little weakness on e3, I should be safe and solid. He went ahead and played e5, and now it's my turn. So I got to come up with a plan here. Now is he threatening bishop g5 now? Perhaps. What can I do? Well, I can go play my knight to a5. That's kind of an interesting move. Threatens to take a pawn on b7 with the knight, and if bishop takes, rook b8, I get his wishes of bishop c6 attacking his rook, and I save my pawn on b2. Knight a5, you play rook b8 likely, but he still can't advance his b pawn because of the fork on c6, so it takes him a little while to get untangled here. So I'm going to go ahead and play knight a5 here and see what happens. Let's back this one up. Okay, this is the one where I deviated a little bit from the normal plan. See, when they play bishop g4 early, a lot of times they're indicating they're going to castle long and try and drill a pawn storm. Okay, so here I just take and go about my business. Now, queen b6 was a very interesting move. He's attacking b2, and normally I like to play c3 and then queen c2, but I don't really have time for c3 because he might snatch the pawn, and I have to play rook b1. He can snatch another pawn, and I get a rook on the 7th, but not sure about the compensation. So I did a little differently, and it might even transpose. I went and offered a pawn with b4, and the purpose of this is to try to take away a c5 move from him at some point, but also inviting queen takes. Now I can play rook here and queen here, and rook takes and queen takes, and the difference between this and the other line is I'm a tempo up. How about that, huh? And I was playing for one tempo. See, it's a lot different than playing c3. Well, I mean, it's a c3 after takes and rook here. He doesn't have to take the a pawn. He can take the c pawn. I could try c4, queen takes, rook b1, queen takes, rook takes, but it's his move in those positions. But here, it gains a tempo, and he's disconnected. He'll be back. He's disconnected a couple times. Okay, did this guy give up? Or somebody just thanked me for the game? I don't think I'm winning that game that quick, but I'll come to it. Okay, so queen. Anyway, I kind of go. He didn't take, and now I played my c3 move. And one thing I like about having b4 is sometimes black will start running his queenside pawns and gain some space and take away some squares, so maybe I'm stopping that. And I just go through with the system, e4. Now he's got visions of opening up the c file, and I throw him a little curve. I'm going to just try to grab some space, to drive that queen back. And I'm inviting what he did, a5, and now I take. Now I'm able to get on the half-open b file. I drive his rook back, and now I just activate my knight, and now I activate that knight. In some variations, I'm trying to get knight d7 in. I thought about pushing e5, forcing the knight back to d7 and then d4, but that's an oops because of bishop f5, and I drop the exchange, or the quality as it's known in other parts of the world. So I rejected that. I was looking at it and thinking, well, he could play with c5. Probably black's okay out of that, but I just decided to go bother his bishop. Now I might be able to play g4. It's kind of crazy. Big a take with the bishop. I don't know if I gain all that much, except lost a pawn. And I just thought about centralizing this knight, trying to invite c5 so that I would have the b5 square. Now he's played bishop d6, and he's attacking that knight. So Now what I'm going to do is put this knight on f3 and reinforce the knight on e5. And we'll go from there. I got to make sure e4 is safe and secure. Okay, my queen's covering it. Okay, so knight f3. Now I move on to another game. I don't think I covered this one from move 1. I just made a move and skip by, so we're following the system here. And a lot of times I will play rook e1. Sometimes when I play rook e1, this d4 move comes in, and it turns out I don't want the rook on e1 after all. I want it back on f1. I'm just trying to remember some of the positions. I actually don't think this is one of them. So I'm going to put not the king. I'm going to pick up the rook, put him on e1, and await developments. Okay. Now he did play rook b8. Okay, now he's a little tied up. He can't play b6, as I said. He can play c6, and as long as my queen stays on this diagonal, my queen is secure. But I need a little breathing room here. So now's the time I'm going to play c4 and go from there. Okay, just kind of a natural move. Now here comes the d4 push. A little early. Stop ding-a-linging at me. See, I'm just going to skip forward a minute. This guy was thanking me. Oh, it's the same one. He's thanking me for the game. I just put a type in here. Sure. Okay, I want to close that chat. He'll get the idea. Okay, do I want to take? Do I want to push by? Pushing by gives up b4, although he's not really menacing anything with it. This does open up the diagonal for my life-squared bishop, so we have another case of an active life-squared bishop. Do I want to take? Pawn takes. He can take with the pawn. That gives him maybe later pressure on the e-file on the e2 square. I'm going to go ahead and push by here. And the reason I'm doing this is to try to grab some space on the queen side with a3 and b4. And it's something I didn't do in the other game, so I'm going to try it here just to get a little variety. Now it's my move here, and I'm running behind on time. Sometimes this happens with the games I start late. For some reason it doesn't want to refresh those games immediately for me. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. How many games do I have? 5. So I played 6 and 1 is over. So 6 games is good. I wish I could get about 10 or more and clean this big waiting list I have down. It seems, though, that anybody that shows up in live chess is getting a game. There was one exception where I accidentally missed somebody. I just didn't notice him. He said he was in there the whole time, and I'll just take his word for it. But that was Conrad 123, but we got to play again the next time. So one thing I run into, a lot of people are playing somebody else, or they don't stick around. Maybe they couldn't play. But, you know, the rule is if you're in live chess and on my friends list, I'll find you and I'll send you a challenge. And we go from there. So let's see. I think it's my move everywhere. So anyway, let's see. Rook e8. Now I just follow through with the system and play queen c2. And everything is safe and secure. My next move will either be e4, or if she plays h6, I'll take the knight. Okay, and that opened up the long diagonal, but can I exploit it? Not necessarily. So I'll just play e4, follow the system. Now let's see. Let's talk about time. Okay, KJ Foster is using his time. He learned that from me. Take your time. And he started doing that. That's what we want. See, you're in a competitive game of 90-30. Okay, played c6. Now, a beginner might play bishop takes c6, knight pawn takes c6, knight takes c6, and say, hey, I'm winning 7 points for 6 points. But it's just not good to give 2 pieces up for the rook. Plus, the board opens up, and black has 2 bishops, and 2 bishops can just be hell on an open board, and my king could come under direct pressure. If I try to blunt the light squared bishop that'll get on the A8 H1 diagonal, say with F3, I'm creating this horrible hole on E3, and this bishop's just headed there. So you do not want to play bishop takes C6. So the question is, how do I continue my plan here? How about if I play C5? The idea of C5 is just to clear the C4 square again for my knight, which right now I'll leave there and await developments. Let's see. You can attack it with bishop E7. I can cover it with a pawn or a rook. And if bishop G5, I have queen B4. Or even queen E1. So I was thinking about this earlier. I didn't mention it. One idea is swing the rook over to anywhere from D1 over to B1, so that if bishop G5 comes in, I can play the clever queen E1, maintaining protection of the knight on E1. So if C5, if bishop G5, queen B6, I got to make sure there's no tactical oops in there. Though I don't really see one. B6 is going to be met by knight takes C6. So I'm going to play C5 here and contemplate redeploying that knight back to C4. Now he could play bishop E6. Don't mind that so much. We could end up with a bishop opposite color type position. If I put a rook on the C file and put the knight on C4, he could rip it, but you know, sometimes you get bishop opposite colors in games. You can't do much about it. Okay, A6. Okay, so here's where I retake control of, I just stop and spend a tempo and take control of B4 back. Okay, so now I'm saving a tempo. Normally I put the queen on C2, but I'm not playing that right now because I'm playing a different system. The queen goes behind the pawn on C3 because it's shielded. And here, I don't know where I want the queen yet. It may not get developed for a few more moves yet. It may end up on C2 anyway, because A3 does help it. But since I'm not advancing my E-pawn, I want to just get a little territory here. Okay, my move. A lot of times what I do after rook E1 is bring a knight to F1. Now, the drawback with that is if he pushes D4, let's see, I can take with the pawn. So knight F1 might be a little premature because a lot of times, if say for instance, let's just back it up and I can explain it better. Suppose black had played D4 in this position. Now this is a position where I can play pawn takes, and after pawn takes I can play knight C4. So I don't necessarily want to move the knight to F1 because it might be headed for C4. So I need to come up with a new idea here. One potential idea is, let's get the right position first. One potential idea I've used sometimes is to take on D5 and then I get access to E4. Let's see, it does weaken D3 a little bit, but I get access to E4. And oftentimes, like, okay, here's an example. Pawn takes D5, knight takes D5. And, I'm sorry, yeah, knight takes D5. Now I play knight E4. Now I'm pressuring the pawn on C5. He can stop and play B6, but, you know, that does possibly expose the rook on A8 at some point. I'm drinking a Coke here as I play. So let me think. Another move is to just go ahead and put a rook on D1 now, but I'm not sure where I want that rook yet. You know, a lot of times D4 is going to come. I'm going to make an exchange on D4. I think what I'll do here is just, well, not entirely sure about it. A3, it's a move I've used in similar positions. It'll keep him out of B4. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. A3 for want of anything else and just wait. Okay, so let's see. Queen came back to a5. What's he threatening? Anything I should worry about? Okay, so how about if I play h3 with the idea of g4 and try to mess up his pawns? That does weaken g3, but he's not pinning me with on the a7 g1 diagonal. Yeah, I'm going to play h3 and threaten to mess up his pawns. Okay, so h3. Now let's see. He did play bishop g5. Now I can still play queen e1. But I think I said queen b4 is fine. Yeah, queen b4. Okay. Now it's my move here. Here he's played b5. Now, one drawback with this move he's just done is he's weakened c6. So, this might be a position where I can play queen c2, because then I'm threatening pawn takes b5 and winning a pawn. And if he takes on c4, I can have my knight go to c4. Then I'm pressuring e5 and getting ready to move the knight on f3 somewhere, even to d2, pinning that knight. So since I took time to play a3, I'll go ahead and play queen c2 here. And now she played this, so now I take. Okay, and was trying to look at the time spent. Looks like she's going a little too quick. Okay, so now I played my first 11 moves, and more often than not, my 12th move is rook e1, so I'm just going to play rook e1 and await developments. Okay, so trying to make me overconfident. Okay, let's see. Do I have a smiley face? That's not a smiley. Why is it not giving a smiley? Okay, let's see. There's a smiley. Okay. Now b6. I didn't expect that, because now I get knight takes c6 in. And I'm on the rook. I'm on the queen. And the knight's protected. So knight takes c6. Now we've got pressure on d3. Okay, so how do I want to do this? I'll just follow with the system and redeploy the knight to f1. And if d4, I always even push by with c4, though I don't usually. I think because this bishop's just a little bit misplaced, but I haven't run into too many formations with the Benoni reversed where black has pawns on c5, d4, and e5, white c4, d3, and e4. Then I try to play for either a b4 or an f4 break, and black needs to play for a b5 or an f5 break. You attack. So I got 5 games left, and I wish there was more. I wish more people would show up to play, but I got up 150 names on here. Okay, so let's see. Rook there. Okay. So now I go to e3. These knights just love to maneuver. And I wait developments. Let's see. d4. I can always put the knight on c4 and accept double pawns. Okay, we got this. Now I take with the knight. Okay, so now I'm threatening the pawn on e5, and there's potential problems with this knight. Okay, so where am I? I'm at move. Okay, let's look at the times. Okay, I've spent some time here because it was a late starter, and I'm also taking a little more time now that the video started. New Fischer. I'm behind on time on these later starting games. Okay, now that just gives me a pawn, I think. Is there any counterplay on b2? Not that I'm aware of. So sometimes I tell my students, don't, the pawns are not going anywhere. You can take them later, but I think in this case I need to take it. The c7 and the a6 pawn, I won't necessarily go for those right away. They'll remain weak. But here I can just to pick up a pawn. I think the question is which knight to take with. How about if I take with the knight on f3? The purpose of that is it just hits the knight on c6, although it would transpose if he trades knights. Okay, let's go that way and see what happens. Now he took and is on my queen, but I think I just pick up the rook, don't I? And his queen stays under attack. Okay. Ooh, took the pawn. Okay. Yeah, and I looked at this. Uh-oh, there's bishop d3 coming. Gonna win my pawn on e4. Well, I can counterattack on a7. Maybe. I'm gonna lose a pawn. It happens. Okay, so let's see. He took a pawn. Oh, he's on my knight. Yeah, I'm missing all kinds of tactics here. Okay, so now he's Zwischenzug with this. And if pawn takes d3, I play queen takes d3, and I'm forking him. So there goes my Zwischenzug. Hope that worked. I play a lot of these games. I play kind of blind. Okay, now I take here, and I'm threatening knight c6. I play a lot of their positional considerations and miss the tactics. So I might be in trouble in 2 games, but that happens every time. Okay, queen c4. I mean, queen c4, bishop b3. Where does my queen go? Well, it can go to d2. It should be safe there. Yeah, let's put it on d2 because I don't want to put it on c6. That's where I want my knight to go. Okay, so now queen f6. So let's see. What's the net result here? If I want a rook, I believe I have. Now, here's a case where I can take a pawn, but it threatens to win a piece. Got to get this knight back in play. How does it get back in play? Well, I guess it has to go through a7 to get to b5. And this pressures c8. I might be able to trade it off. Okay, so knight a7. Now let's see. Bishop d5. Interesting move. I can play knight c6 here. Knight c6 is going to net me the 2 bishops because I'm on his queen. He'd have to play bishop takes c6. And if I take on d5, I'm improving the position of one of his pieces. So knight c6, I believe it is. And we'll go from there. Okay, knight c6. Oh, look at those pawns storming. Okay, what was my last move? a3. That's right. I was getting ready to maybe play a c4 break. So now is the time just to go ahead and do this. Okay, because he can no longer protect the c5 pawn with b6. Okay, so now he's on my queen. And my queen needs to find a home. How about if I pressure that bishop with queen d7? Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, queen d5. Now, let's see. Knight takes d6. I don't have time to play. He can throw his wishes at me in a second. Let's see. Just pause here a minute. Let me just do a quick review of all the times. Let's see. I have 78 minutes there. Good, he's taking his time. I have 64 minutes there. I have 76 minutes there. I have 66 minutes here. I have more than an hour in every game. And then I have, yeah, that was coming. Rats. Okay, let's see. Well, just a pawn. Queen A4, Queen B3, Queen D2, Queen D1. Queen D2 is horrible. Queen A4, Bishop takes. I can't play Queen takes A7 because Rook A8 traps my Queen. So I'm going to put it on. I'm going to put it on B3 and invite her to play C4. Okay, now let's see. Took there with the bishop, so now knight C4, or knight E4 I mean, attacking C5, and if knight takes, I take with the pawn, and tempo the bishop. Okay. So there's that. Now I can play Queen D8 check. I don't know, that seems like a waste. This knight's not doing me any good. I'm just going to get it into play. Oh wait, bishop takes is a nuisance. See, I'm so close to always making tactical slips. I can check on D8. Play knight C8. Knight C8 attacks the rook. Yeah, knight C8 looks good. Then bishop takes, queen takes check. Gotta get this knight out of there. Knight C8. What's he do? No bishop discovery is useful. If he moves his rook, he drops his bishop. So this forces bishop takes. Okay. Now back to this mess. Okay, let's see. Let's see. What am I down? I'm down a pawn for the moment. Knight takes. He's going to Zwischenzug with pawn takes. So I have two other potential moves here. I can play knight B6 or knight E3. Let's see. Rook B5 is a wild move. You can take it, but it's a wild move. You got to consider the wild moves as well as the unwild. Knight takes D6, CD, Queen D2, I'm going to lose a pawn here, but I'm going to have, or am I going to lose a second pawn here? Wait, I guess I have to win the pawn back on D3 to make it down. Let's see, I could also play pawn takes, and if queen takes C4, I can play E5. That forks a couple pieces. He can play bishop takes F3. Now this gets scary. Easy way to hang a piece. Okay, let me look at some of these other games. Okay, so now it's time to activate something. Let's activate a rook. Okay, my move here again. Not quite sure what I want to do here. What have I got left? I've got an hour. Yeah. I just heard a click somewhere else. So I'm not sure what I want to do here. I got to sort this one out. And lots of clicks elsewhere. Pawn takes E4, queen takes C4, giving up a piece. He's disconnected again. He has 5 minutes to reconnect. This happens with a lot of players I've discovered. They disconnect and come back. He'll be back. So I'm just going to look at my other games real quick. Oh, he gave up this one. Okay, well, thanks for the game. So I'll come back and look at that one, I think, in a minute, or I could run through it now. But this puts me down to what, 4 games? That helps. It helps a lot. But let's see. Just peek at these other ones. Okay, he's on my bishop. Threatening to get counterplay. I'm just going to bring the bishop back and play safe. Now let's see. Took there. Now I take with the pawn. Okay. Now back to this game. So what are my candidate moves? I have all kinds of interesting candidate moves here. I'm not sure which one's the best. I'm down a pawn for a moment, and I can go down 2 pawns very easily. Probably win one back. So sometimes, you have to, when you discover you have to lose a pawn, you just try to lighten the load the best you can. In other words, get what you can get out of the position. Can you get active and keep the aggression on in any way, shape, or form? Now, one of the pluses in the white position is the pressure on the B file. Okay, I've got his rook tied down to guarding a pawn. So if I'm gonna, ideally, the worst I want to happen is to go down 1 pawn, and then get as much play on the board as I can. Another interesting thing is I can, thinking I can move the knight on f3 and pin that pawn, but he just takes on d3 and he's on my queen. So, sometimes you just have to stop and really look at these things. And, Super Grandmaster can look at a position like this and say, well, White, you've got a little too cute, you've outwitted yourself, you're going to go down a pawn. So what's the best way to do it? Well, it's like this. And he'll see what I'll spend the next 10 minutes trying to figure out here, what it is that should be done. I'm not as fast as a thinker, but I can probably find the best move if I stop and take my time, and I have 56 minutes to find the best move, and he's reconnected. So let's see. He has what? 7 pawns. I have 6. And it's my move, and I got to figure out what to do. Okay, so again in candidate moves, crazy moves like knight b6, knight e3, pawn takes e5, knight takes d6. There's all kinds of possible moves here. Of course, let's see. I could block the d file with knight d4, but let's see what happens on knight takes d6. He plays cd. Oh no, he takes my knight on f3. Eek. Oh God. I'm just blind. I'm thinking he's going to swish his leg with ed3. How long have I been talking about that? Now all of a sudden I see it's no good. So I got to come up with a new move. If I move the knight on f3, I do pin the pawn. This was a new idea. But he takes on d3. Ah, wait. What if I put the knight on e1? And he takes on d3. He's attacking my queen. Now, do I gain anything? I don't know. Knight e1 looks... Or knight fd2, is that any better? No, he just takes the pawn directly. But he's going to take it anyway. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm going to have to move that knight on f3. All my other ideas... Now, do I want to put it on e1 or d4? d4 blocks the d file. I'm thinking... But, he's going to get e5 in at some point, too, Just got to batten down the hatches and go back to e1, I think. Okay, so here he's offered to trade. And that'll leave me a light squared bishop. And since I'm a pawn ahead, and bishop f4 doesn't really gain me much, I'll take it. And we'll go from there. Now let's see. Did take the pawn. Okay, now I got to get some play for my pawn. Rook ad1 activates the rooks. Okay, so let's see. Rook c8, ac8. Okay, I've got the d5 square, but it's going to take a while to get there. Knight d2 to f1 to e3 to d5. It's going to take a while. But that's what we do in this situation. And we just go for it. Okay, knight d1. Okay, he took with the queen. Now, if I play b4 at some point, he's going to get some counterplay, maybe with a5. How about if I just double rooks and let him worry about that c-pawn for a minute or two? Okay, queen c7, got the queen out of danger. Bishop h3 drives his rook out, but also hangs my knight. Moving the knight lets her trade bishops. You know, I just bungled a pawn here. It's just that simple. Knight d5, can I get away with that? Knight takes, nope, I can't get away with that. How about knight c4? Thematic. I'm just doing this down a pawn. Might run into a pin with bishop d5. I'll live with it when it happens. So let's see. Looks like one game ended. Let's do a quick run through on this one. I'm a rook ahead. This is the one where he advanced a little too quick on d4, and I chose to take the c4 square with the knight, anchored it in, and now I developed the queen. I come up with the idea of knight a5 just to pressure his queen side. And now I think a good move would have been bishop e6 here. And then even if he wants, just trade it off. And but you know, I like my bishop a little better than his bishop in this position, so you'd be close to equality. But here he just commits a tactical oops, and there goes a rook, and not much he can do. But he said he learned something, and you're quite welcome for the opportunity. So I'm going to close this one down, and I think I have 4 games left. Yes. Okay, I'm not sure which ones are moving. Here he played c4, which is fine. That gives him the d3 square, but he's going to be there a little late. Let's see, knight f1, knight d7, knight e3, knight c5, knight d5. I get there first. I get to d5 before he gets to d3. Okay, so knight f1. Okay, now he's bringing his knight back into play, so now I just develop this rook. Unprotect f2 a little bit, but I should be safe and secure there. Menace his pawn on c7. Okay. Now where do I want to go next? How about if I anchor this knight in with a4? Just provide a little bit of security, maybe some counterplay. Okay, a4. A lot of times I play intuition. On intuition, let's see. So this one I'm up a pawn. This one I'm down a pawn. This one I'm down a pawn. And okay, one game ended. Did he disconnect? Piano Man? What? Wait, who? How did I win this? Oh my goodness. Game abandoned. Oh, I'm sorry. It would have been an interesting game. What can I say? Okay, so I don't know exactly what was happening in that one. Okay, let's see. What do I want to do here? I'm going to go ahead and play b5, b4. Get it over with. Okay, bishop took that. That means I need to take here. Right? Okay. So, yeah, it's unfortunate. I'm not sure what... I'm just down a pawn. Let's back this up. I outwitted myself in this one. Let's see. I already discussed the ideas behind this far, and you know, I drive the rook back, and Now I just try to activate my knights, and I like my knights here. But here is where I just essentially outwin myself. I'm trying to play h3 with the idea of g4 and messing up his pawns, and I just totally overlooked the fact that he can take this pawn, and now he's on my knight. Whoops, tactical whoops. So, we lost the game for a second to come back to it. So now I come up with the idea of his Zwischenzug here, and then here I know I spent a lot of time, wasn't sure what to do. I was looking at all kinds of crazy moves. Knight b6, knight e3, knight takes d6, pawn takes e4, sacking a piece temporarily, trying to get e5 in. And I finally realized he's menacing pawn takes f3. He's not going to take on d3, duh. But I kind of found that when I hit on the idea. I said, I can move this knight and I'll pin that pawn. But then I think I was first thinking of knight h4, but knight e1 at least protects this pawn, and that's where we left off. So what's going to happen here? What if he takes? What do I do? I can play knight. Can I play? Oh, wait a minute. My knight. Now this knight's hanging. Ugh. Was he winning this game? What do I do if he takes that pawn? I think that's the most critical move. My queen's under attack. Well, I can take on d3 and just play a pawn down. Queen takes d3. That wouldn't be too bad. Queen takes d3. Queen takes, knight takes. I got a tempo on his bishop. I've got active play on the b file. I probably have some compensation. Let's see. If I don't take the pawn, I can't take it with the knight because queen takes c4. So the only other alternative is to move the queen to b3 or a2. What does that do? I don't know if that does much good. Well, it keeps the queens on, at least for now. I mean, he can let me take on d6 and swap the queens off. So let's just say for a moment that let's try this. This gains a tempo on the bishop. Now the bishop's got to find a home. Bishop e7, so he's up a pawn. Hey, maybe I can return to the scene of the crime with knight e5. And now I'm ready to do what I set out to do. Play g4 and mess up his pawn structure. So maybe I probably have some compensation for the pawn, and it's definitely worth a sit-down look. I'm sure there's probably better moves for both sides in there, but sorry you disconnected. Thanks so much for the game. Best luck in your chess. Okay, so close this one down. My score is, 3-0, and I'm down to 3 games. Okay, he did play knight d7. He's headed for d3, but I get there first. I get to d5 before he gets to d3, and I have a solution to keep him out of d3, and that's bishop f1. I do believe. I just didn't state it. Okay, so now, let's see. I can go for tripling with rook c5, but he goes knight d7. I can play queen g5, and the idea is it stops a5, and it plans queen c5. Yeah, let's try that. Queen g5. Okay, now I got everybody thinking. So the Simul is now officially an hour and a half old. The video is 48 minutes old, and my score is 3-0. And let's see. So at least the game I was bungling against Piano Man. I think I had some compensation. Okay, now he's driving me where I want to go, and that's c5. Okay. And I'm inviting a queen exchange. So I have 7 pawns. He has 6. He's got weak pawns on a6 and c7, and even the d4 pawn is weak because it's kind of sitting out there. My e2 pawn is a little weak, but I can cover that with bishop f3, maybe king f1. But the rook is covering it at the meantime. But that may change. If he trades queens and I take back with the rook, I'm no longer protecting e2, but It's going to take him a while to get another defender on or attacker on that, if at all. Bishop f3, he's got to chase it, get his knight to knight d7, e5. Okay, bishop f8. So now knight d5 tempos his queen, and also stops him from playing knight c5 because of a fork. So there, I got the knight into d5. Okay, he declined the queen trade. Now I can win 2 rooks for the queen. Queen takes b6, a b6, rook takes c8 check, king h7. Could get a little messy. Let's see. Like to. I could also play rook c4. Rook c4 attacks the pawn on d4. Let's try that. It's the reason I don't want to take the rook, even though I get 2 rooks for the queen. That's usually a good case. I'm also reconnecting his pawns, and it's not clear how I assault those pawns. Although maybe, let's take a look. Queen takes, pawn takes, rook takes, check, king up. Where do I put my rook? b8. He might play queen a4 and start getting counterplay on my pawns, and then my a4 pawn is weak. So what was I saying? My move here, rook c4, and just try and win that pawn on d4 because he's got lots of pawn weaknesses. Okay, so queen b7. I can do some threats with this. Bishop h3, that pins the knight. It threatens to play bishop takes d7 followed by knight f6 check. So let's do that. Okay, now f7 is no longer protected. If I play knight e5, I'm attacking it twice. If rook takes, I take back with the bishop. Let's see, otherwise my knight will fall. So let's go attack that pawn on f7 and see what happens. Try and win my pawn back. My poor pawn. Okay. And I've got them all thinking. Let's look at the time. 56 minutes there, 60 minutes there, 74 minutes there. Okay. So I'm impressed with KJ Foster. I did several of his games during the first weekend championship, slow time control, live chess championship, and he agreed with me that he had to take his time, and he went ahead and started doing that, and I was real happy with his play. So here I think he needs to play bishop g7 again and cover that weak f6 square. So my threat is bishop takes d7, winning a lot because he can't take it because knight f6 check is deadly, and my bishop would be forking 2 rooks. So you could play knight cb8, but that's the kind of move you love to see because it undevelops his piece, and he's stepping backwards, and I have a chance to try to improve my position. Everybody gets an even game with this opening, everybody, and for me it works great in a simul because I don't start facing a lot of uncomfortable openings and get caught in prepared analysis that I don't know. But slowly but surely I start making ground, so now I can win this pawn. Do I want to take it with the rook? I'm starting to pick up the rook, as you can see. I could take it with the queen, but the rook has some initiative here. How about if I take it with the rook? Just drive his queen away. He might play knight d6, but then he's subject to a pin. Let's see, before I take it, I can also play bishop c6. Take his knight off and go 2 pawns up. But I like having the bishop. That bishop's becoming useful. I don't need to trade everything off. I'll like to keep it on and try to outmaneuver his knight with it. So I'll play rook takes d4, go a 2nd pawn up, and I think you just made a mistake because now I take your knight and you can't take it. Okay, now I gotta threat, if you take it, my threat is knight f6 check. So you saw that I had a pin and you tried to break the pin, but you didn't see what else I was threatening. I was removing the defender of f6. So these are just tactical slips. We all make them. I make them too. You know, but I think this game is, I just want a piece. He needs to cover, and he definitely needs to cover f6 now because the threat knight f6 is back again. So, barring a clever defense that I'm not seeing, okay, e6 covered, cover the double attack on f7. What do I want to do now? Okay. Not quite sure what I want to do here. I guess I've got some activity for being down the pawn. Do I want to trade anything or let her do the trading? See, if she takes on d1, I have to take back with the bishop or the queen. I put my knight on c6, though I'm not sure what that does. Play a5, invite her to mess up her pawns, go 2 pawns down, but her pawns get split, but that gives counterplay on rook b8. You know, face it, I bungled a pawn, so could play bishop c6 here. That's an interesting move. Bishop c6 attacks the rook. Rook e7. Knight e7's not good. I just, well, yeah, just take it. Bishop takes. Okay, so looking at bishop c6 now. Trying to get that bishop in the game. Bishop c6. Rook takes d1. Queen takes d1 is forced because my bishop can no longer take it. Then rook d8. Now my queen's loose. I don't know, that bishop could get hung out to dry there. She moves the knight, threatening to undermine the defense of c6. If I had to put anything on c6, it should probably be the knight. Did I mention looking at trying to do some sacrifice on f6, I'm sorry, f7 or g6? It undermines the pawn on e6, but I don't think I get enough. And then my bishop is just not quite ready to join the party. Knight takes... You know, say knight takes g6, f takes, rook takes e6. What do I get? I don't think I get anything except going down a piece. You know what I can do? I can play h4 here. h4 is the idea is to play h5, and we're trying to invite her to make some weaknesses against her king. So I knew if I sat here long enough, I'd find a move. And I believe I found it. And if rook takes d1, I'll take with the bishop. And then the bishop's ready to hop into c2, maybe. Okay, so, yeah, unfortunately, you're going to go down a rook here. And you don't have a light-squared bishop to menace my king, so do that. Now, queen e6, attacking my pawn. I could play this. Now I'm threatening to play queen b6 if he leaves the third rank, because I'll end up with a pin on the knight on e8. So let's go attack the queen again. Okay, now rook took. So I'm up a rook here. So the next step is to try to break in on the dark squares. So invite him to get rid of his best defender of the dark squares. Before I do that, let's see. Knight f6, bishop takes. He can play rook f6 and chase my bishop out. Or rook e6 and chase my bishop out. So, let's give him a chance. Let's make him find it on his own. See, queen here, the threat is knight check, bishop takes. Then if rook f6, I don't have time for queen h6. So I may not get the quick checkmate I was hoping to get. But and it's such a good knight on d5. Why get rid of it? Yeah, why get rid of it? I'll just keep it there. Rook a d1. Improve my position. Okay, there. Got a weakness. Not much of one, but I've got a weakness. Okay. Now, let's see. Queen c2, rook takes d1, bishop takes d1. Did I gain anything? What about a knight takes f7 sack now? Or do I want to move my bishop so that I can put the knight in on g5? Where she can get a knight to g4, but oh well, I can't have everything I want. The knight looks a little... I can't play bishop e2. I hang my knight. Queen takes e5. Buh. Okay. Let's see. Well, like I say, I've made a little weakness on the king's side. There's some variations where if I pin the g6 pawn, the h5 pawn is loose, but it's not really loose as long as the knight's protecting it, even with the pin. So, let me just peek at the other games. Okay, that's my move here. So, let's see. Queen takes is no good. But I have rook e7. That looks inviting. Put the rook on the 7th rank. Attacks the queen. Possibly menaces f7 at some point. Let's try that. Okay. So, I got 71 minutes there. I've got plenty of time, and it's his move. I've got 55 minutes here. That's plenty of time, and it's his move. I got 49 minutes here. That's plenty of time, and it's my move. And I'm down a pawn because I bungled it. Okay. How about if I try to redeploy this knight to f4? That avoids some unpleasant exchanges, maybe. It keeps the rooks on the board, at least for now. No, that allows c4. See, look. Pawn to c4. Ugh. Okay, let me drop this knight on h7 so it goes back to the right square. Always trying to maneuver knights. You should too. Okay, what if I put the knight back on c4? Isn't that where it came from? Yeah, it is. Let's see, knight c4. So suppose she tries liquidation. Rook takes, rook d8. Yeah, let her liquidate. I got to play a move. I don't really want to... If I take on d1, I want to take with a rook, not be having to take with a bishop. let's just play knight c4 and await developments. Okay. Let's see, he moved queen there, so now I don't have time for queen c4 because it hangs my rook. I can trade his queen. And actually, I don't have to trade his queen. I can play bishop c6 here. No, bishop c6 is met by rook takes c6, deflecting my queen from protecting the rook on e7. So, just going to have to trade the queens. That was what I wanted to do anyway. Okay, h6. Okay, so I think here I can do the check. But I have to be careful. Just a thought. Knight, bishop takes, rook here. Where's my bishop go? If it goes back to h4, I lose it. So, you know, his bishop isn't that good. Mine is. I'm just going to keep it on the board. I'll keep my pieces on the board here. I'm a rook up. Okay. So he took there. Now, is he threatening anything I should worry about? No, he isn't. So now is when I play bishop c6. Although I could play bishop b7. That does, you know, I just want to liquidate. Bishop c6 is a nice move. Bishop c6, it is. Okay, rook there. She's trying to double. Well, I can take, well, I can't really take the d file. Rook takes, queen takes, rook d1, rook d7. Let's see, I put the knight back on c4. What if I put it back on e5? Then she can't plant a rook on d7. Yeah, let's do that. And if knight d7, I could play knight c6. So let's just put the rook back. Or the knight back. Okay, we'll play back. Okay, so now knight here. And well, I have the d5 square. I think I just liquidate, plant a rook on d5 and double rooks. Okay, so knight takes check. Okay, so now knight here, avoiding the trade. And where's that knight going? Not going really anywhere I should worry about. One idea is to put the bishop back here. That menaces c7. Let's drop this bishop here on e. I'm not sure where he came from. Bishop b7 is possible. Attacks the rook. Then I get my rooks doubled on the 7th rank. This seems to win another pawn. Let's see, what do I have? I have 7 pawns to 5. Maybe now's the time to win those pawns. This just, you know, I've got my pieces placed optimally. The only thing I don't have activated is my king, but that's not as important. His king isn't activated. So bishop b7 attacks the rook and threatens to take the pawn on c7. We have it. Okay, queen. Now I said rook d5. You know, the knight was on that square earlier, but the rooks can do fine there. They'll just double and threaten to penetrate on the 7th rank. Okay. Knight g4. Okay. Does this get me my pawn back? Maybe. Let's see. Knight takes. Am I missing a trick? Is there any kind of queen sack, any kind of sack on g3? No, she didn't have enough there. Okay, knight takes. I'll bite. Okay, what's happening here? Took. Okay, she took, and now I take here, right? And I've got my pawn back. Hooray! Okay. So These two games appear to be winning. Because I'm a rook up there. Okay, now I take it. Take that critter. Okay, now we could have a mass liquidation here. Opposite color bishops, what they mean is the attacking side's a piece ahead. That's what they mean. Now, whose bishop is better? Well, her bishop can't get to d4. That's a key square. They'd be very active there. Mine could, I'm not sure where mine's really active. e4 would invite f5, which would weaken e6. Do I want to play h5 at any point? Not sure what that does, other than try to expose the black king. Maybe it's better to play queen c2 here and then consider h5. And if she trades rooks, let's see, takes rook, takes rook, takes, my queen takes, and I'm on the file. Well, I'll just play queen c2. The game's very level now. Okay, now double the rooks and go a third pawn up. Okay, I get these pop-ups. My database is outdated by like 300 days. What database are you talking about? It looks like KJ resigned because I was a rook up there. Let's see, a5. Okay, I'm not too concerned about that, simply because I'm up a pawn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this classic style. I'm going to put the rook on c2. The purpose of this is, first, it covers e2. The second point is it's going to go behind my passed pawn, because rook's beyond... Oh, wait. Let me drop the rook here. I'm thinking of throwing a check in first just to put the king on h7, but the king can get out pretty quick this way. Let's see, how quick to d5. Okay, it's going here 1, 2, 3, 4, and here 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't really gain anything. I'll just be precise and play rook c2. My plan is to put the rook behind the b pawn. Okay, and there's the rook trade that I suspected. And how to take? I'll take with the queen and get on the file. Okay, so two games left. Yeah, KJ took his time, but he just made a slip. Okay, he missed my idea. Wow, weakness. Hey, okay. Bishop e2, because it has more potential to attack like the pawn on e6. So bishop e2. Okay, and like I say, now I go behind the pawn. Now anytime his rook moves, my pawn moves, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you want your rooks behind your pawns like I've done here. Now the next step is to activate my king, which I will do, and he will probably do the same thing. So let's review this game with KJ Forster. Okay, so it's all following the book here. Oh, gonna break my analysis. Okay, so now that bishop is not really getting active, so what I need to do is get my guys active. Bishop c4, plans if e5 to play queen d5, and I've got penetration threats. Okay, so bishop c4, maybe white has a slight plus here, maybe not. Let's look at this game again. So he kind of kept delaying things and not, he hasn't committed to h6, he never did. And I played a3 just to secure that, and here I secure b4. Okay, well, you're getting your king up, so am I. Okay, here comes my king, and now I get queen d5, and suddenly I have threats. My queen is trying to penetrate. Let's see. Queen d6, queen g8 check, king h6, queen h8 mate. Surprise. Okay. So he's brought his king up. It may not happen that way. And now your king can go no further. Now I'm going to just zugzwang you here. Okay, so now probably should have played f5 to restrain. Let's see, f4 check. And then if king e5, f3, and if g4, I check on d4 first. Okay, so check first. Let's try and cover this a little more of this game. But these folks are moving a little too fast. Okay, so let's see. Oh, bishop g7. Well, that covers the mate. Get back to this game now. f3. And the idea is to play d4. I get queen g8 check, but I'm not sure what else I get. I could try to throw attackers on f7 or g7. I'll come back to that game. Okay, now I kick you back. Check. Okay, it may pop up. I'll try to get through this game. I ended up in a new way of getting the exchange on e4 that common happens by offering a trade this way, and he took with the knight. Now I start aiming for d5, and he looked like he was headed for c5 and d3, but he didn't. And here, I just tactical recognition, I see, it's easy to see there's this hole here, and the knight check certainly looks inviting. What's guarding it? Well, this knight is. Eliminate the knight, and you get the check. So thus bishop h3 came in right here. And the other nice thing about this move is it also is masked as a pin. And so he goes to break the pin and misses the whole tactic. Here what he needed to play was bishop g7. And he played rook b8 and broke the pin, and now suddenly, whoops, he can't take it or he's going to lose his queen. And now I end up a whole rook ahead. And I couldn't find any way to get a quick direct mate, so I just redeployed my forces, took over d5, and he decided to resign. So I'm impressed you took your time. You just didn't see the little tactic. But thanks so much for playing, and good luck in your chess. We have years of chess friendship ahead of us, all of us, okay? All right, now let's see. So the next step here is to chase his king, or chase his rook back so I can advance my pawn. I haven't taken a walk yet. I usually stretch. The simul is now 2 hours old, and the video is 1 hour and 18 minutes old. In order to win a game, you need two weaknesses. The only weakness I can find in black's game is g6. If the queens come off, it's probably very likely a draw. So what I think I want to do is keep control, keep her out of the d file, play queen e6 here. The idea is simply to be able to play h5 with new threats. So I'm going to play queen e6 here and try to undermine f5. Okay, so now rook b8. Now there is a check threat, but that check's not going anywhere. I'll just start advancing the pawn. And pretty soon that rook is going to be helpless against the pawn. I'm going to get that pawn up to the 7th rank, and his rook is immobilized. If he plays rook b6 now, I play king c5 and drive it back. You know, it's going to get. He needs his king to help, but then the problem is I have some new pass pawns coming up the board. If he takes on e4, I get two connected pass pawns, and they're going to be marching up the board too, and just a matter of time before this one is over. And This is one of the games that started at the end. Okay, now g4, a little trick. Okay, the trick is that he wants to get a pass pawn 2. So I'm just going to throw him off. Check. See, if I took either pawn, let's just back, well, he didn't do it. Now I play h5. Okay, h5 threatens the pawn on g6 and threatens to win the pawn on f5. Is that what I want to do? Yeah, that's what I want to do. Okay. Now let's just back up and I'll show you. It's a little trick. The idea is if I take this pawn, he can take this pawn. You know, e takes f5, g takes f3. And if I play g takes, or f takes g4, he plays f takes e4. So instead I just checked. And now I'm going to push by. And, you know, his check is useless. Even though his king can get to d5, I'm going to be pushing b6 in a hurry. So rook check, king d3, king d5, b6, rook back to b8, b7, and he's going to run out of pawn moves. Okay, let's see. So I can force the king to g8. I get a pawn here. Do I want the pass pawn or do I want to take with the queen? Queen takes g6, king h8. Let's see. If I take with the pawn, check. King goes to h8. I need to get my queen to the h file, but that bishop interposes. Now taking with the queen is fine. This leaves the pawn on f5 weak and puts me a pawn ahead. Okay, so now king d5. Now I just push the pawn. Okay, so new Fischer, and here comes my pawn. Now his rook stymied. He runs out of pawn moves momentarily, and I have plenty of tempo moves with my rook. Okay, now I want to pressure the pawn on f5. And the best way to do it is to play bishop d3, because she can't push f4 because she gets mated. So bishop d3, that allows e4. Bishop d3, e4. Maybe the best way is bishop e6. And then if f4, bishop d7, or not bishop d7, bishop f5 threatens mate, king to g8, and I push the pawn to h6 and win a piece. So bishop e6 is the way. The attacking side is a piece ahead. That's one of the rules in opposite colored bishop endings. I'm able to use my bishop here. Okay, king there. And like I say, he runs out of pawn moves. My king just starts approaching. If he trades on b7, he gets a lost king and pawn ending. He has one pawn move, but he's running out of moves. So, okay, he's choosing the lost king and pawn ending. Okay, so very interesting position. Trade queens and go into an ending opposite colored bishops 2 pawns up. That's your best defense. If my pawns get too far advanced, you can blockade them. Let's see. I'll just take the pawn. We're gonna wait. Can I do anything with the queen here? Queen e8 check. Well, she just brings her queen back. Okay, we'll play the opposite colored bishops, but I'm 2 pawns up, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, now I think if I just invade with my king, it'll end the game quickly because he's going to run out of pawns. Okay, there go the queens. Now I'm 2 pawns up. Question is, can white win? I think white can. That's my gut feeling, that white can win this. But having opposite color bishops definitely helps. Okay, so the first step is to activate my king. Where do I want my king? I want my king to penetrate down the H1, A8 diagonal. So I can go ahead and play king G2. Okay, now your pawns are falling. Now I bring the king up. Okay, I have 44 minutes there, and I have 56 minutes there. We're going to be just down to 1 game here in a moment. Now I got my king where it wants to be. She does have the dark squares blockaded on the king side. Oh, you're going to do that, are you? Okay, good move. Bishop G8 sounded like this other game ended. Okay, yeah, he resigned. Thanks for the game. Let's do a quick run through on this, then we'll play the other one out. Okay, so when they play in the early E4, you have to stop and play D3 before you castle. And here I decided to push by and play for queenside expansion. But one drawback with the way Black's played this is he's weakened his queenside, and later those pawns got in trouble. And he made a tactical whoops and lost a pawn, and now I get the bishops off. I mean, bishop pair, I should say. And got control of the c-file. Now I'm able to just trade and improve my position ever so slightly, and those weak pawns aren't going away. And I offer queen trade, which he declines, and I just come up and take care of that weakness. Now I have 7 pawns to 5, so I'm 2 pawns ahead, and he's still got 2 weak pawns. And I just start improving my position, and now he has to trade queens. Now I threaten to trade off the knight. He declines that. Now I just go attack his pawn. I'm rook, and I'm going to win another pawn. And I'm 3 pawns up on the 7th rank, and now I just play sane chess. I get the rook behind the pawn where it belongs, and the rest is relatively easy. See, his rook can't move. If it moves, I advance the pawn. And as you saw, when his king came around and took it, and his rook took it, he's just down too many pawns on the other side of the board. And he wins 1 pawn back, but he's down 2 pawns on the other side of the board. And here I deny him a chance to get any counterplay whatsoever. And now the pawn just runs, and essentially he's in Zugzwang. He's got one pawn move left that's safe, and all I do is just move my rook somewhere along this file where it can't be bothered, and he starts having to back up with his king, and my king starts coming up the board. So that game will end, and I'm down to this game with Princess Kitty, where I'm trying for a win, and 2 pawns up, and I need to walk because sit down on my rear end too long and need to circulate the blood and get it out of my rear end and up in my brain. Okay, I will be back in about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. Okay, I'm back, I think. I think I'm back. Now, we have an ending that black could have a theoretical draw if played correctly. I'm not exactly sure the assessment on this. The first drawback in my position is my pawn is on h5. From there, I'm not controlling g5. There's two ways to play this. Take separated pawns with f4, or try to enter with my king on either d5 or f5. Naturally, if I can get my king to f5, that would be terrific, because I can run that pawn up to g5 pretty quick. Another idea is to accept split pawns. That too could lead to a theoretical draw, because black is going to defend the dark squares, but then I have the possibility to go after the pawns on the queen side. But even that may not be enough. It's possible, if my king does penetrate down to b7, that black can give up the a5 pawn and plant the bishop on a5 of all places, and especially if black forces my pawns up to light squares. You know, I'd be with this 3-on-2 pawn majority on the queen side and 2 on none on the king side, and not a clear path. Of course, imagine the black bishop on a5, no pawn on a7, pawns on c4 and b3. If the bishop ever vacates the a5 e1 diagonal, and I'm pressuring c5 with my king, I could play a5. The purpose of a5 is that I want black to take, but black doesn't have to take. But then again, I could push a6, so he takes and loses the pawn on c5, and I get a third pass pawn, and that's probably enough. So in order to drive his king somewhere, her king somewhere, so I can advance my pawns, I need I have two ways to do it. I can advance the pawn directly, or I can try to chase the king out. Now bishop h7 threatens a check on g8, and the king can't come back to f7 to prevent it because e5 hangs. So, oh no, she disconnected. Oh, she's back. Okay, good. Okay, I don't want to win this that easily. So bishop, I can save the f4 push. Bishop h7 threatens a check, and I enter with my king on one side or the other. So I'll save the f4 idea, and I'll try the bishop move. And you're the last game. You made it longer than anyone else. Okay. So I'm trying to penetrate with my king somewhere. She can play bishop c1 and bishop d2, and those pawns will go up to light squares, but they're going to be immune there. I'm trying to enter with my king somewhere. That's what I'm trying to do. My h5 pawn could be a target, direct the king over there to take it, and while my king is trying to chew up pawns on the queen side, and try to get that scenario where I can undermine the pawn on c5 with an a5 push, but none of that's forced. Of course, the king runs over, that leaves e5 exposed, and then I get two protected pass pawns. When you have a bishop and two pawns against bishop of opposite colors, there are ways to advance the pawns, and there's ways not to advance the pawns. And in a lot of cases, they become drawn. And let's see, c4. Okay, she's trying to fix. Well, that just unfortunately bungled a pawn, because now I play bishop g8 check, and I win the pawn on c4. And the idea, I think, was to be able to put the bishop on c1 maybe she still can do it. Bishop c1. b3, bishop b2. I have to back my king up. Now, where do I put it? b3 or b4? b4, it becomes a potential target. I'll just put it on b3, play it safe. Okay. Now king d3. Oh wait, there's, see, she's got counterplay here. Okay, king d3, bishop e1. So I'm not thinking. Okay. Three pawns up, and she's close to getting a drop. Okay. Okay, let's see how to do this. F4. I get my two split pawns again. I knew I should have played b4. Well, it doesn't really matter. Okay, let's see. King. I don't really want to play king d3. I really don't. F4. When my king runs, you know, those pawns are going to become targets. If I put them on light squares, she can blockade. So, let's see. King d3, bishop e1. I think my interests lie in chasing her queenside pawns, but I've got to do this right. If I don't do it right, then, you know, maybe she gets one of those blockaded positions. There's a right way to do these and a wrong, and sometimes, you know, it just depends on the pawns can be connected and pass, two connected pass pawns, and the defending side can hold a draw. It just depends on the activity of the kings and the bishops. If my pawns end, I'm not sure if I can get connected pawns on the king side. I mean, yeah, on the king side. The only way I can do it is g4, and that just allows, let's see, what was I saying? G4 just allows black to blockade with a king, but then e5 falls. But then if I give up the pawn on c3, would it matter if I played g5 here or b5? I'm still going there. Okay, so the question is, do I want two connected pass pawns or not? If I put the pawn on g4, she needs to take on c3. Then I can play f4, and I'm going to get my two connected pass pawns. Okay, I got to go for two connected pass pawns, even if she can blockade. If she gets a draw, she gets a draw. But now my plan is, after bishop takes c3, to play f4 and get my 2 connected passed pawns rather than play f4 and not have them. But I got the feeling the position's a draw with a knight pawn and a rook pawn. But, you know, anything can happen. I shouldn't lose this. I hope not, but... So I think she does need to take the... oh, it went that way. Okay. Now I want 2 connected passed pawns. If I can get 3, I'll really be happy. Okay, so f3. Now she's going to take the pawn. And my king has to run for the king side, or queen side. And my bishop gets tied down to guarding f3. So I'm not optimally placed. Okay. So step 1 is... What's step 1? King d5, king f4. That makes my bishop passive. Bishop d1, king e3. Well, then my pawn starts running. Bishop d5 first. So this is a position where I probably should have played the pawn to b4, because now I could put it on b5, and a7 becomes a weakness. Now she can put the pawn on a5 and hold on to the b6 pawn, and these pawns are immobilized. So I think the only way is to try to maneuver the king around. I'm going to play bishop d5. I have a feeling the game's a draw. I'm going to try to bring my king around to g7 so that I can threaten to advance that pawn. Not sure this wins. She needs to play a5 at some point. Of course, another idea I could have done is played b4. Yeah, see, I'm just bungling these things. I'm thinking of these things after. She played the right move. See, b4 says if bishop takes, I take. And I've got 3 connected passed pawns. Hooray. But, you know, we're just having fun, giving everybody practice. Okay, so now, like I say, I've got to try to send my king around to the g8, g7 square. Of course, on g7 there could be an annoying discovered check. Activating one of her passed pawns by giving me 3 connected passed pawns. Okay, so watch your bishop. I'm attacking it. Don't lose it. Okay. Now there's no point in going back here, so we'll come in this way. You know, I'd love to have a pawn on b5, then I can... But, you know, I go in the pawn on a7, and what am I doing next? Okay, now I'm going to attack your pawn. I'm not expecting to win it. Bishop e3. Do I want to play b4? Do I want to play b4? Oh, it gains me. Threatens to win a pawn, but she's not going to allow me to take on a5. And I know you've offered a draw, but we're going to play a little bit. You'll get one soon enough, I think. Okay. So she's made a comment. She feels like she kind of threw this game away somewhere. Was really confident before. Well, yeah, I just bungled a pawn, and I think your rook... You could have repeated the position, maybe. Now you're going to cut my king off. Or are you? King d7. I'm trying to sneak in the back door. Not sure if I can get anywhere here, but I'm going to try. Okay, bishop there. Okay, going for broke here. Maybe your bishop needs to be on the a1 h8 diagonal, but you can play bishop h6 and keep my king out. And you did. You read my mind. So fiddlesticks. Don't see how to make progress. Let's see. G5 check goes nowhere. You're just going to shuffle your bishop back and forth between G7 and H6. Oh, let's see. So the moment I go back and attack C6, the bishop just runs back over there and holds on to it. But you know, I got an idea. I'm just going to try it out before I offer the draw. I'm going to maybe throw an H6 in there, just give up that pawn and try to trade it for either the B pawn or the E pawn. Okay, so now my idea is to play H6. And if bishop takes, I take on B6. Of course, you can play bishop B4 and just put your bishop on B4 and everything's neutral. I'm just trying a couple ideas. I want to see if they can lead to anything. Can't blame me, Ooh. Now, do I play H6? Bishop takes, king takes B6. Would want to keep my H-pawn on the board and play G5. Bishop takes. I keep a passed pawn. Let's see. Let's try it that way. G5. Yeah, G5. Bishop takes. King takes B6. Let's try it. Yeah, I can lose 2 pawns and still have a draw. Okay, so we'll see what happens with G5. Maybe I can sack both those pawns and win both of her queenside pawns. Try to overwork that bishop so the bishop's holding back my pawns and protecting on the queen side. So here I'm trading off one for the B6 pawn. If she's doing anything wrong, she's moving too quick. I have a feeling it was a draw. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe theoretically White can win this, I'm certainly not spending a lot of time on it myself. It's not that... Why did you resign? Ooh, well, maybe it was winning. Well, thanks for the game. Let's see. I'm trying to type it in here. You could have played a bit more. Let's see. Bishop takes, king takes, bishop here, H6, king here, bishop here, king there. Here. This might still be a draw. Might be a draw. Maybe even when the queens came off. Might be draw. So thanks for the game, and happy to find a position where you can play a game where you can get practice playing competitively, because that's how you get better, when you get in the experience of these. So the video is not quite 2 hours. I think I'll just call it a video on here. Let's do a quick review of this game. Let's back it up. And then, you know, everybody equalizes against this opening. Everybody. And here I just outwitted myself. I didn't think of the bishop coming down to d3, and I'm down a pawn, but I got some activity for it, and I think that was a mistake, giving up that. Now I'm just looking for weaknesses, and turned out this worked. We went up bishop opposite colors, but the attacking side was a piece ahead, and it's probably still even here, although I think I'm getting somewhere. You're just trying a little too hard to get the pieces off, and you made some weaknesses in your king position. This would have been a perfect time probably to play king g8 and king f7, and you should be safe and secure. I can play bishop c4 and bother e6, but suddenly I gain time here, and your king can't secure that square, and my queen's going to pressure it. Now I have an open line, and there's even some possible mate threats, and now I get h5 undermining f5, so I get a pawn, and now I'm going to get another pawn, and you get the queens off, and this might be a draw. This pawn on h5 is just a little too far advanced. You've got the dark squares covered. And anyway, I thought that just bungled a pawn, but it didn't. And yeah, here I should have played b4. Now you go there. Now you take this. Now my king can. Well, I don't want to run it yet. You're gonna play down here. I have to get all these pawns on white. Yuck. Okay, so now we're going to put your bishop here. I'm going to run my king down and get your king to help, I suppose. Maybe you can box me in. Now how's my king get out? Ugh, what a mess. And probably wouldn't have mattered. This seems to, unless I can do one of those tricks with the shoving a pawn. No, your king just gets in. No, the game's a draw. I'm up 3 pawns, the game's a draw. But what do I know? It's good to look these things up. The book I would recommend is Bishop Endings by Averbach. It's part of an 8-volume set I call the Averbach series. Yuri Averbach was a Soviet grandmaster back in the Fischer era. He was one time a qualifier for the interzonals, which the top players went on to play in the candidates tournaments for the right to eventually face the world champion. I'm not certain if he ever achieved success in that, but the Russians, the Soviets, attempted in the 60s, early 70s, to write a series of books which covered every possible position. I mean, not every possible legal position, but the basic rules, like and they divided them into 8 volumes. There's rook endings, pawn endings, queen endings, bishop endings, knight endings, bishop versus knight endings, rook versus minor piece endings, and queen versus rook or minor piece endings. In some cases, there's one side doesn't have a piece, the other side has a piece and pawns, and sometimes the pawns wins, and sometimes the piece wins. It's really interesting. They pretty much categorized every possible thing, starting with the basics. One side just has 1 pawn, and then move up to 2 pawns, and then 2 to 1, or 2 to 2, or 3 to 2, or pawns on both sides of the board, possession of pass pawns, possession of positional advantages. They've pretty much categorized almost every type of position. This would come in a case where, in this case, white's 3 pawns up, but all my pawns are on the color of my bishop. Ugh. And bishop can blockade a whole bunch of pawns. Look, this bishop is blockading all those pawns. This may very well be a draw. And I didn't spend long enough to totally evaluate it. That's my own fault, my own laziness. But, I don't care. I'm just here having fun. I'm playing these simuls for you guys to give you a competitive game. And if I don't give my all, you still get a competitive game, because unless I do one of my patented blunders, which I've done many, I can hold my own here. Here, like I say, I can lose 3 pawns, and I could lose all 5 of my pawns and probably have a draw. But I wouldn't want to risk it. There's rules with how far the pawns can be separated and whether it's a win or a draw, and I don't even remember them. Would have to work them out over the board. But it's good to know all these things. But the Averbach series is a great endgame series. It's 8 volumes. They're kind of costly. The ones I have are written in English descriptive notation. That's pawn to king 4, pawn to king 4. That's e4, e5. They were translated from the Russian. Pergamon back in the 80s republished them 2 volumes together. I don't know if they covered them all. I think they did. I don't remember. I didn't buy them because I already had them. But if you want to learn all the intricacies of endings, those are your bibliography, and they're useful if you're playing online or correspondence chess, because you're allowed to consult endgame books. And that was one of the reasons I acquired them, was when I got into the correspondence chess and having to play the tough masters, and how to play the endings. And they're a great book. The other book I'd recommend on the endings is Endgame Strategy by Shereshevsky, Shereshevsky, just like the American Grandmaster Sammy Reshevsky, except it's got the prefix she, S-H-E, in the front. Runs about $15. You can find it just about everywhere they sell chess books, including Amazon. You can get it delivered to your door in days. And it's just a wonderful book. It covers more endings with more pieces, but you learn a lot with that one. Anyway, I was lucky. Thanks everyone for playing me. I didn't expect to win them all, but I did. I'm kind of lucky. The one guy disconnected, and the games I was dropping pawns I came back in. And there'll be another simul soon. I'll announce it. And thanks again for watching. Take care. Bye now.